If you've ever wanted to make a functional carbon fiber splitter but didn't want to spend a ton of money to do it, join me today. I'm going to show you how to do it the quick and dirty way. I'm JC, and this is Moto Technique. All right, now that we have sanded the crap out of this for hours, my hands are tired, I'm trying not to use too many power tools. I think at this point, we need to get the existing splitter that I am replacing. It has the frame still on it that allows us to be chassis mounted. At this point, I'm just gonna lay it over the top. We're gonna kind of line it up, make sure that I can get everything in the right place, see if dimensionally it's about what I'm looking for. Remember, measure twice, cut once. Well, we've already cut it a bunch. We've also sandpapered. But before we get any further, let's get some more measurements. Let's get it on the car. Let's get it in the air. Turn the wheels and make sure nothing comes in contact with it. Ideally, once we get everything lined up, we'll be able to preliminarily mount the actual frame. We'll get it on the car, make sure everything lines up. We'll disassemble it all, and then we'll get the first coat of epoxy on it to seal it, and then we will effectively be skinning this in carbon fiber. So now that we've trimmed out all the extra wood that we determined was going to make contact with the tires, now we want to start beveling the edges. An important thing that you want to note when you're beveling the edges on the leading edge of the splitter is you want to have a smaller radius on the top with the larger, smoother radius on the bottom. The idea behind that is you want the air to stay connected as it goes under to keep it as smooth as possible, while allowing all of the air to hit the air dam on top of the splitter, allowing more pressure to push it down. Pretty simple. All you got to do is just sand it off and just make sure that the leading edge is sharper on top than on the bottom without being a 90-degree point. So we'll just sand that real quick, and then we'll start prepping it for final fit up. We'll do the last measurements before we disassemble it and start getting it ready for epoxy. So if you notice right here, you can kind of see where the sanding beveled in. There was a dent in the wood that I was hoping I'd be able to get out with sanding, and that just didn't work. So what I'm going to try to do is use some of this plastic wood filler, and we're just going to try to build that back up so we can sand it back and get it even. If it was not on the leading edge, since it's wood, this is the quick and dirty series, I actually wouldn't worry about it, but because this is on the leading edge, I want this part more than any other piece of this to actually be correct. So we're going to build it up and then sand it back. So bear with me. so today I'm going to be using the US Composites 2-to-1. This is pretty slow. You can see I have it written down slow for that. We use it with some of the later, and then the US Composites base resin here. So we get about 6 ounces. Take it up to 9 like this. All right, we're going to try some of this dye. I've never used this before. We're going to give it a shot. It says it only needs a couple drops. All right, now that we've got the one side done, we're gonna go ahead and flip it over, and then we're gonna try to get the rest of it done. Try to get it out today, and then we're gonna let it cure, and then we'll get a couple top layers on before we go to clear coat it. So just a quick reminder, this is not necessary. You want to do this as a consumable item. You don't need a wet sand, you don't need a polish. I'm just a little OCD and I like the carbon look. So because I've spent, I don't know how many hours sanding, I'm gonna polish it out. So I'm using the Meguiar's 105, 205 on my DA. We're just gonna hit it really quick. I just wanna get a little bit of that shine back and at least make some of this hard work pay off. So remember, consumable item, don't need to do this, but if you want to, you can make it shine. So I like to use black carnauba wax, and we're going to use a applicator to get this on here. The black would just fill in any of the scratches, anything that we had going on with the actual carbon face, and it'll just kind of hide any of the issues that we were having. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. These little pucks are amazing for skid plates. So putting up the bolts, a couple little pieces on top to clean it up. Try to make everything as aerodynamic as we can, considering how much we're disrupting the airflow here. So that is for the skid plates, the little pucks. Coming in pretty good. Let's go ahead and keep moving. All right, so because we have the splitter mounted in such a way to the chassis frame, I like to use these shocks. These splitter rods, see if I can try to get them far enough in here, have a little spring type of contraption here that compresses as you hit something, if you hit a curb or anything like that. So I like to have these mounted, chassis mounted to the bumper beam while I can, which means that we need to put one of these. I've drilled out. You can see they've got a little dowel on it. I've drilled it out, and then I bought some of these detent pins. Let's see if we can get this close up in here. So this allows me to sleeve through and effectively make it quick disconnect. These are going to be mounted to the splitter and to the bumper beam, but I want to be able to remove this splitter without any tools. So I'm going to use the detent pins, and then I'm going to use some safety wire with some of the little ferrules and a little loop rings to create
a little safety wire catch so I don't lose these in the event that they come out. So let's go ahead and make some of those. All right, so now the safety wire and detent pins are attached. We can go ahead and attach them to the actual rod. So I'm going to connect them. All right, so we got this on. Let's try to get the bumper on. I just want to see if I can get everything to hook up, do it without any tools, quick disconnect. That's the goal. Let's see if it fits. It is super dirty. And they don't have all of the fender trims on, but I think that this came out pretty freaking awesome. I am super happy with this. Fitment looks pretty good. So you get some end plates and the canards done. This thing needs a wash. All right, I think I'm gonna end up having to do a detailing video after all this. Let me know what you guys think. There are a lot of different ways to do this. You can do this with wood like I did. You could do it with Divinycell H80 foam. That's technically the correct way to do it. If you had a large glass door, you could lay out a roll of carbon fiber. You could place your properly shaped foam core on top of that, put another layer of 12K carbon on top, vacuum bag the whole thing, compress it down. You could do that with wet layup. You could do that with vacuum resin infusion. That's technically the right way you would want to do something like this. But let me tell you, that is going to take a little bit more time, a lot more know-how, some special equipment like vacuum bagging, the vacuum itself, some extra other little bits and pieces that a lot of people just aren't going to have to do. And you're going to save maybe a couple pounds. The trade-off is not there for me. For a consumable item, frankly, you should just stain or paint a wood splitter. If you want to do a little bit more, do something like this with a carbon fiber top and bottom layer. If you can vacuum bag it, even better. I tried to show it with bare minimum tools. So this is not the right way to do it. This is the quick and dirty way to do it. And I just want to make sure everybody is crystal clear with that. I don't have this thing fully mounted. I'm not going to stand out. I'm not going to do any of that crazy stuff that you see people doing. I don't think that's a particularly good test because you have all of your weight in a isolated area versus level spread on the surface area like you would understand aerodynamics to be affecting the actual splitter. So I'm not too worried about that. I probably need to go around and get slightly longer bolts and a couple different bits of hardware before I will have this thing fully on there. But for all intents and purposes, this thing is installed finally. I would say this took way longer than I expected. You probably noticed that I wore, I don't know how many different changes of clothes because this took weeks and weeks of work, you know, for an hour after work every day, here and there, between weather, between humidity, between heat. I started this over the winter. It was cold, yada, yada, yada. You know what I mean? So for all of you guys that want to have a cheap carbon fiber splitter, highly recommend 1/2 inch, 10 mil, whatever you need, water-based balsa or some sort of slightly waterproof wood, plywood, and then top and bottom carbon. I think you'll be good to go. Now we got to do canards and we got to do end plates. So if you guys want to follow on with this E36 series, right now we're hitting all of the quick and dirty stuff. I'm working on some fender flares and carbon fiber and a couple other things that are not the correct way to do it, but they're also one-off items, and I don't want to spend a tremendous amount of time doing molds and all sorts of things for all of these one-off pieces. But We will go over some of the mold making, and we will go over some of the correct way to do things as we get going. So please, if you guys haven't subscribed already, if you want to follow some of these builds, we've got the F36, we've got the E36, a couple other different projects in the works. So come on with me. I think it'll be a good time.